Hi cuties. So as I was perusing the interwebs today, I felt a random chill down my spine and goose pimples appeared all over my skin when I scrolled past a list. Not just any list, but an absolute dog shite one by IGN, of course. Now, I don't mean to be dramatic, however, I am the greatest horror gamer of all time, so I must come on here and discuss their top 25 scariest horror video games of all time. And that is a big prerequisite for them. They're specifically ranking these based on horror and overall freakiness, okay? Now, horror is different for everybody, I admit. I once shit my pants playing that rock bottom section of SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom, but nowadays it's knifing for me. As we all know though, Jack the Ripper is simply the greatest when it comes to gaming opinions, so I gotta correct a few things, okay? I will say I'm not gonna sit here and review all 25 because this isn't the worst list of all time, and I kinda agree with certain games and their placements, but the egregious rankings need to be shat on, you smell me? Let's just go ahead and start here at the big chunk of numbers 25 through 17. So the very first game on the list at 25 is Stay Out the House by Puppet Combo. Great game, I'm a very big fan of Puppet Combo by the way. However, I will say there are scarier games in that fella's catalog. The Power Drill Massacre and Babysitter Bloodbath are two absolutely fucking horrifying games with fantastic sound design in particular. The sounds themselves are where the true fear comes from, and I'm not saying Stay Out the House is worse by a large margin, but having this at 25 and then a game like Inside at 20 is crazy, to be honest with y'all. Inside is, by all intents and purposes, a puzzle game with some light horror elements, dark themes and thriller moments, but it's not even close to being a horrifying video game, you know? If you played Inside and shit your britches, you might need to retire from playing any more horror games, bro, because it's not for you. I really like the nods to Condemned Criminal Origins and Manhunt here, because they are very slept on in my eyes, but to have Dead by Daylight over both of them, yeah. Listen, Dead by Daylight can have its moments, especially when you're giggling and farting with your friends, but at this point in the life cycle of it, there's no way you play it and actually get scared anymore. I don't care what anybody says. Also, Slender the 8 Pages at number 24 is laughable. Who the fuck made this? PewDiePie? On to the next section, my cuties. Now, this middle ranking area of 16 through 9 is slightly better, but that's not saying much. They have Five Nights at fucking Freddy's ranked in the top 10 scariest games of all time. I'm gonna say that again. Five Nights at Freddy's is one of the top 10 scariest games to ever exist according to IGN. Scarier than Alan Wake 2, Soma, Condemned Criminal Origins, Forbidden Siren 2? Now, Five Nights at Freddy's isn't the worst piece of dog shit ever, despite obviously not being my personal cup of joe, but the scares from that franchise have absolutely ran their course for me. Simple jump scares and screaming at the screen is really not gonna do it anymore, you know? I respect the impact that it had because it certainly spawned a huge wave of inspired/copycat games, but with hindsight, I believe most sane human beings will say it's nowhere near as scary as when it first came out. Going back to Alan Wake 2, I would certainly try to argue that it deserves a spot in the top 10, but perhaps it's a slight recency bias because I will say I just wrapped up the Lake House DLC, but that game combines such great tension with a nice sprinkle of jump scares, and it works so goddamn well, you know? I love that they put Forbidden Siren 2 here, I will say that, because Team Silent made it way spookier than the first, and overall it's just a better video game than its predecessor. Everyone go play that motherfucker right now if you can. The Soma nod is also fantastic because the horror of that game comes from its themes and story implications. I mean, without spoiling the ending, I think about that shit all the time and still get chills down my widow spine. It is absolutely gut-wrenching, y'all. Now, Resident Evil 4 is one of my all-time favorite video games of all time. I mean, I got the damn insignia tatted on me for Christ's sake. And I'm not sure if they're talking about the remake because they didn't specify, but used the picture in the background. I would absolutely argue that the original is way scarier though, especially if you play it on the OG consoles on a beautiful CRT television. It's way grittier, grimier, and I'm incredibly biased because RE4 is one of the first horror games I remember completing as a child, and it frightened the fuck out of me, dude. I love a good spooky castle/woody area, and this game is no exception. If we being real though, I truly don't think it's scarier than Alan Wake 2, Forbidden Siren, or even the OG Resident Evil 1. Just being a fair, unbiased source for you cuties, you know? Okay, now this is where it really gets crazy. Numbers 8 through 1 on the all-time scariest video game list to ever be crafted. Left 4 Dead 2 at number 8 is solid. I like that. I mean, running into a witch and triggering her attack is still all-time horror gaming moments, and there's a reason why its peak player count rivals and even shits on modern gaming counterparts for real. The randomness of every single session you play allows for it to still be freaky to this day because you never know what you're gonna get. So shout out Valve, good shit. Outlast at number 7, I really can't get behind. I know at this point it's becoming a modern gaming classic because everybody's played it at this point, but I do think Outlast 2 and even Outlast Trials, I'll say it, can be way freakier, but that's more of a nitpick, I admit. Alien Isolation at number 6. This one is hilarious, y'all. Before I even get started, just know that I agree, this is a great spot for the game. The alien AI in this video game is beyond incredible, and despite it being a longer horror game that slightly overstays its welcome, it deserves to be in the top 10 of anybody's horror list regardless. If you weren't already previously aware, please take a gander at what IGN gave it back then on its release. Yes, you are reading that number correctly. They did rate it this low. I understand that whoever reviewed this is just one person and doesn't necessarily speak on IGN as a whole, despite the fact that they published the article. But you gotta admit, it's absolutely hysterical. They got a game ranked as the 6th best scariest game ever, and they reviewed this motherfucker this low. Whatever. Just some more gaming media hypocrisy. What can you do? Dead Space at number 5 is great whether it be the remake or not. This is a horror gemstone and a game that every human being should play once. Shout out to my dog Glenn Schofield. I forgive you for Callisto Protocol. Fuck it. PTF4 is fair and fine, despite it not really being an actual game, you know, it's more of a demo, playable teaser. But it set the standard for all scary games to come after it, and Kojima is my GOAT, so I ain't gonna complain for real. I got agendas to push. Amnesia: The Dark Descent at number 3 I am okay with. It wouldn't necessarily be in my top 10, but I respect its internet legacy, and the chase scenes you get in this motherfucker and the insanity meter are genius, fantastic additions to the horror gaming climate. So thank you for your services, Frictional Games. So the Resident Evil 2 remake at number 2 is very, very fitting. I like this a lot, actually. This remake is a 10 out of 10 perfect masterpiece that remade an already perfect masterpiece game and made it scarier somehow, so it deserves all the love it gets, truly. Now, number 1 is Silent Hill 2. Fuck it. Once again, I'm not sure if this is the remake or the OG because they don't specify. However, I have to disagree no matter what. I am a firm believer that the first and the third Silent Hill video games are just spookier, I'll be honest. The first one is the blueprint for so many modern retro indie horror games you see pop up on Steam every damn week, and it's still so eerie to this day. The PlayStation 1 was the martyr for the fog implementation, and I feel it was done the best in that very first entry, simply because of the console's limitations, you know? The third one is horrifying as well because of the underworld sections and boss fights in my eyes, slightly edging it over Silent Hill 2's, but once again, this is just some slight ripper nitpicks. I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world. And that's the entire IGN spooky scary list, and while it's not the craziest thing they've ever suggested, I will say I don't agree with a lot of these placements overall. What do you guys think though? What is the scariest video game that you've ever played, and was it in the top 25 already? Okay, I won't give y'all a top 25, but fuck it, here is Jack the Ripper's official 5 scariest Ripper games of all time list. These are subject to change, by the way. Anyways, at number 5, Fatal Frame 2. I cannot believe they did not have a Fatal Frame on this list. What the fuck is going on? Number 4, Alan Wake 2. Easy, duh. Number 3, Dead Space. Like I said, does not matter if it's the original or the remake, they're both scary as shit. And at number 2, I got Signalis. A more recent entry, but it's still so fucking good and so spooky. And at number 1, I got Silent Hill 3. Like I said, I would maybe swap one of these out for Resident Evil 7 because I do think that game is severely underrated with the scares. But yeah, I'm pretty confident in this top 5, y'all. That's about all I got though, y'all. Make sure you drop a copy of Fatal Frame 3 on the like button. Perhaps smooch that subscribe, and I love you guys. Bye.